than there are with assault weapons. It's just they kill, the events that had assault weapons killed a whole lot more people in a short period of time.
And make the front page of the news.
Yes, and then they sell a whole lot more of them. The
But
NRA.
you do favor banning assault weapons.
I do.
Then you explain about, I'm not coming to get your gun, this is to be well, smart. And actually, the NRA used to be, there's a question here about donations of the NRA, and I wouldn't even ask because that gets complicated, but, because if you just say, I don't support donations from the NRA, which today I would not support, but what used to be a gun safety group, that's what it was. Now, it feels like the right wing has taken it over, and they're all about selling guns.
Well, they are. They just represent
do you think you can ever bring that reputation back? I don't know. You have any impressions
I don't
of
know,
it?
but they are definitely they represent gun sales. They don't represent gun owners. They make money. Their biggest donors are Smith & Wesson and Colt and the people who make guns and bullets, and they're not representing gun owners. They would like them to believe they are, but they're not. And I have gotten the questionnaire from the NRA, and it went in the garbage. I mean, I didn't even bother filling it out to let them give me a 0 or whatever. I'm not interested in communicating with them. What are they going to do? The John Locke Society has sent me their questionnaire. Same thing, went in the garbage. I wasn't really that familiar with who they were until I read through their whole thing and then looked them up, and I'm not interested in hearing from them. It's not who I aspire to represent. I aspire to represent the people of Western North Carolina, and my campaign is going to be funded by donations from the people. I don't want to be beholden to those people.
Okay, so, yeah, another question.
Are there any gun, say, activist groups, organizations that you do want support from?
I can't think of any. I mean, if they came along and I haven't, my dad didn't have a gun when I grew up. There was never a gun in my house. My father was in the Marines, and my brother was in the Air Force. And my brother, I'm the youngest of 6 kids, and my oldest brother's 13 years older than me. And when he came home from Japan, I remember him having his Colt 45 out in the backyard. We had a big yard, and it was safe for him to target shoot in the backyard. But that was the first experience that I had with a weapon, and that was a very brief experience. I didn't shoot it or anything. I just watched him shoot it. I was 11 or 12 years old, and I didn't own a gun in my 20s when my hair was down to the middle of my back and up in a ponytail, and I was driving around playing rock and roll music. I looked like, why do those people want to kill deer? Why do they want to shoot guns and stuff like that? And then I get to be in my 40s, and I bought a piece of land, and I have children to feed, and there's deer in my property, and I figured maybe I should harvest some of these deer, put them in the freezer. And that's what we do. My kids love it. We love to eat venison. It's the most healthy protein you can get, pretty much. And so, you grow up and you change, but that's where I am with that.
Okay, let's move on then. 4th question. Could you describe your position on immigration reform?
I support the Dreamers 100%. We should make DACA, a permanent thing. We're all immigrants to some degree. This country was formed and built by immigrants and dreamers. We don't need a wall. We need to have strong border security, but it doesn't require a wall. Build a wall and people will climb over it. People will go under. We just wasted $40 billion when there's people who need health care and education. We need to look at the budget and what's needed for border security officers, surveillance, drones, things like that make sense, but a wall definitely doesn't. We need to find a quick path to citizenship for immigrants. And 40% or more of the undocumented immigrants in this country flew here on an airplane, and their visa overstays. They didn't come across the southern border. And maybe they don't even have brown skin, they're white-skinned Europeans. It's just hatred. It's hatred and bigotry that is driving this current immigration attitude. If it wasn't for the immigrants that are here now, who are actually paying taxes and paying Social Security tax, because they do. If they're getting paid by a paycheck, which so many of them do, we're taking Social Security out of the check, but they don't get to take advantage of that until they become documented or legal citizens. So we aren't having enough babies to pay into Social Security to pay for the people who are collecting Social Security checks now. If we just got rid of all the undocumented immigrants right now, Social Security would just disappear for the most part. I mean, the people who are getting those checks, they would dwindle down to nothing almost. So, I'm all about immigrants. And I can tell you that our economy would be shut down without our immigrants. Yes, sir.
How do you counter this whole subject of immigration? Because it's changed in 2 years. Here we are in early 2018, early 2016, going into the presidential election in November. It was a reasonable person could make a case against illegal immigration. But really with Trump, that was a dog whistle. And it's now a bullhorn where it's morphed into anti-immigration. It doesn't matter whether you're legal or illegal. And you use the proper words. It's bigotry. It's hate.
Nationalism.
Now we're incredibly in the United States of America. That's built on the backbone of immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
We're against a good number are against immigrants. How do you fight that? On the stump, what do you say?
There's people like Trump he's a divider, he's not a uniter. And they divide and conquer. And by accusing one group of being the problem of another group is how they've done it. And it's the blacks, it used more so back in the 50s, 60s. It's the blacks that have taken your jobs or corrupting our society and sleeping with your white daughter, It's the Mexicans that are taking your jobs, It's that narrative, that lie. How do we combat that? Stop telling the lie. Start telling the truth, I guess, and embrace people. We're all, in 50 or 60 years, we're all going to be brown. We are.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I have one, if I may.
Sure.
You mentioned on your website a DAPA program that I had not heard of. Could you describe that?
DAPA?
Yeah.
You got it on that one.
No? Okay.
One of my policy gurus has thrown that one in on. I better go home and study that one. That's the parents. That's
Yes.
what it is.
Yeah.
Deferred action for parents.
I just
Yes.
never heard of it before. So, so I was wondering if that was a thing.
Apparently it is.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Is there anything else on your deal that you don't believe in?
Don't say I don't believe it.
I know. I didn't mean that. I know.
No, I had to think about that. Yeah, it's parents of legals, allowing them, and the Republicans will call it mass or chain migration. That's their,
Yeah. Okay.
It's just bringing families together. Families need to stay together.
Okay. Last question. This should be in your wheelhouse. What will you do as a congressman to improve the quality and reduce the cost of health care?
Well, as I said, I'm a recipient of the Affordable Care Act, and that's number one reason why I decided to run for this office. Because every time Mark Meadows comes on TV, especially last year, tells us where he's going to repeal the Affordable Care Act with no solution, no replacement. He's talking to me and 45,000 other people in this district. And I had to stand up. So the solution is a Medicare for all, a single-payer system. House Resolution 676, which is the Conyers bill, seems to be the most sensible path to Medicare for all. Expanded and improved Medicare for all. There are so many aspects of how our economy will be improved by moving to a single-payer system. For instance, we remove the burden of providing health care from employers, big employers, small employers, who have to provide health care. When you take that off, first of all, they have a windfall. Right now, about 20% of their bottom line is the cost to provide employees with health care. If we remove that, and we move that over to the single-payer system where the federal government is making those payments through collecting our taxes, then people like Walmart, who right now don't give their employees a full 40-hour-a-week paycheck, so that they don't have to provide them with health care. Then all of a sudden, that's been removed, and there's no reason for them to not give them the full 40-hour-a-week job, paycheck. So right now, they've got to go get a second or third job, and we, the taxpayers, are subsidizing their payroll to the tune of about $150 billion a year. Because even though they get a paycheck for the 31 or 32 hours that Walmart allows them to work, they still qualify for Medicaid, food stamps, and housing assistance. And where does that come from? It comes from you and me, our taxes. So when we take that burden of health care off of Walmart, and Lowe's, and Kmart, and all these huge employers, then they can give their employees a full paycheck. And if I have something to say about it, we'll make it so that they have to use part of that 20% to raise the wages. It can be a win-win thing, where out of that 20% that they're gaining by not having to pay for health care, they give 15% of that in a raise of wages to their employees, and they still get to raise they're still going to increase their bottom line by that 5%. So they're both winning. The employer and the employee will win from that. We'll both be making more money off of that. So another aspect is, like my friend Ronnie, who plays bass for me. He was a contractor, a framing contractor before the housing recession hit, before the big recession hit, and doing well for himself, working. Ran like 5, 6, 7 guys on his crew. Housing market burst, and no work. So he had to go get a job with a big plywood company, and he's got the midnight shift, and he's driving a forklift. And they provide him with health care. He can't stand the job, but he's got to do it because they give him health care. So people like my sister who worked 15 years in a job that she didn't really like, but she had some existing conditions, and she couldn't quit that job because she would be the threat of not being able to get health care would be tremendous. So she's shackled, held by chains to a job she couldn't really stand simply because of health care. If you took that burden off, then people could say, you know what, I'm not really liking this job. I'm going to go look for a better job that pays better. And while I'm not working, I don't have to worry about not having health care because I got health care, because we all have health care. So, and you know what, I've got an idea. I've got an entrepreneurial idea that I could go out and make a bunch of widgets, and I'm going to need 4 or 5 people to help me with that. You need a job? You need a job? I could hire you, you, and you to come over here and help me make these widgets, and we'll go off and start this new business. And it has nothing, healthcare isn't even on our minds, because we all have healthcare. We're carrying around this card. If you got a Social Security card, you got a healthcare card. Period. No matter what, we got healthcare. The cost right now of private insurance would, the amount of taxes that we would all be, that would be raised upon us would be so much smaller than the amount that we pay in healthcare. Say you pay, $500 a month for some health insurance policy, that's $6,000 a year. It will be way less than $6,000 added to your taxes every year to have that health care card. So it's going to be, there's over $3 trillion in health care that we as Americans pay in health care to have health care, but it's going in the wrong pockets. It's going in the CEOs of the insurance companies who make $18 to $20 million a year. It's going into the stockholders of Aetna and these private insurance companies. When insurance became an industry, a for-profit industry,